Lola spent the last hour or so in the living room, enjoying the feel of being on the couch commando before any of her other siblings came home. If more than one person wanted to watch the tube, it would have given the Louds would fight for it. Fortunately, Lola didn't have to worry about Lana wanting the TV, seeing their older twin was playing with Hops outside, in the dirt. However, the 6-year-old couldn't help but wonder why everyone couldn't get their TVs in their rooms. Surely there was nothing more simple than just putting a few cords to a wall, sticking to them with a boob tube, right? Speaking of siblings, Lola looked out the window just behind the TV for any sign of her two older sisters. Lynn and Lucy didn't get on the bus with them this afternoon, and that being it was Monday, they didn't have any clubs or whatever to attend. Well, Lucy didn't. Lynn was putting off some sports for an unknown amount of time. Looking at the clock, the little princess saw it was almost 3:30. Where are they? Suddenly, at the front door slammed as a foot was kicked. Lynn stomped in, hot air blowing out of her nose with each breath with a neutral looking, Lucy trailing after. Lola could practically see that the steam was coming out of the Jacques' head. I almost had him, Lucy. I was this close. The Jacques spoke venomously, raising 2 fingers and only leaving a small amount of air between them enforced their point. Are you sure you checked everywhere in the library? He could have hidden in the vents, you know, or behind a bookcase, the Goth replied. Lynn whirled her head around, her ponytail still swinging out a bit, before resting in its usual position. I'd say yes to the last few times you asked that. She then spoke through with her gritted teeth. And berating me for losing that boy isn't helping. Although they couldn't see it, Lucy was still furrowing her brows behind her locks. I wasn't berating you. I was just pointing out the possible hiding places. The 8-year-old folded her arms. It's what I do if I needed some peace when I write. Lynn narrowed down her eyes. Well, that Lincoln faker wasn't a goth like you, so how would you know? Turning around, the teen stomped upstairs. The sound of the door being slammed was heard seconds later. Lucy gave a low sigh, pinching the bridge of her eyes through her hair. Lola looked between their dark sister and the stairs. What just happened? I know we wanted Lynn to be herself again, but not like that. Sigh. We had some complications at school. Lola's eyes widened. Did your meeting with Linky fail? Lucy shook her head. No, he read my poem and forgave me. Almost immediately after that, even apologizing for some of the hurtful things he said to me. When I found him at the school library that Friday after he ran away. Lucy walked over to the couch, placing her book on the coffee table. It's what happened after that. Lynn was being her usual angry self. Lola shifted her position a little, supporting her head on the lazy arm. Well, spill, I hadn't heard a zip from that school. Right after Lynn had apologized to Lincoln and cried on the floor afterwards, someone sent false photos to everyone in this grade. Taking out her phone, Lucy pulled up an image folder, showed the screen to the younger girl. Lola leaned in. Her eyes narrowed as she studied the doctored photos. Wait, you said everyone in Lincoln's grade? How did you get these? She glanced up at Lucy, raising a brow. Haku sent them to me. Lola hummed, noting the different type of apparel to Lincoln had, not to mention the other girl in the photo. How? Now, isn't that the girl Lincoln had a crush on before he met Ronnie Anne? It is. The Goth took out her phone back and chancing a look. Now most of the school thinks Lincoln is either lucky or a cheater. I don't even think they have the courage to say it directly to him, no. I see him both and Ronnie Anne trying to prove these are fakes. Well, whoever that boy is thinks he can imitate our brother. He has another thing coming, if he knows what's for him. Did you say the way he dresses? Like no class at that at all. I wonder if that Christina girl is seeing him. I don't either. Lucy put her phone away. But Lynn was close to finding out when she actually saw the boy who was pretending to be Lincoln. He had silver white hair, like from what she said. She chased after him, but lost him in the library. Lola folded her arms. So, what now? This sounds like something Lisa would ought to look into. Lynn said she'd do that. The two girls looked at something heard being punched, along with the faint rattling of the chain. Lynn was out of doubt exercising her frustration on her punching bag After she fenced, that is. Lucy grabbed her remote. And I'm not going out there while she's angry. Lola grabbed her top half of the remote. I wasn't done watching my show. She then spoke with a hard glare. Lucy yanked the remote in her direction. I'm not in the mood to watch pageants, thank you. Lola yanked it back. And I was here first, she retorted. The two girls growled at each other, wishing to relinquish their control of the TV. After their short tug of war, Lola grabbed part of Lucy's hair, forced her head to the couch cushions. The goth responded kindly by grabbing the girl by her waist and tossing her to the floor, only to be pulled down due to Lola still holding her hair. Lana came back inside with mud on her overalls as the two girls stared and started the brawl. Given a shrug, she went upstairs, Hops following after her. At the Santiago residence, a certain young couple sat in the kitchen doing their homework. There was an air of frustration surrounding them, each child giving a tired gaze at their worksheets. They completed them. Thankfully, the cause of them wasn't so much from each other, rather it was who they had to deal with. Ronnie Anne groaned a bit, her head supportingly lazily on the arms as she jotted down notes. Is it just me, or is this homework even too boring to do today? I thought it was always boring, but yeah. Still worn out from the constant pestering from other guys in my class, rather jealous of me, or like I'm some sort of cheater. Lincoln tapped his pen on the paper, having to lose his train of thought. Ronnie Anne set her pencil down, unable to focus on her writing. If you think that's bad, I actually had girls telling me that Christina deserved you more than I did. As a group, like a broken record. Her lips curled down as her eyebrows furrowed. They're just lucky the school has ended, because I was just about ready to arrange their faces. At least they are smart enough to finally shut up when they saw how angry I was getting, but I really wanted to get out of there. Lincoln half-idly looked down at the Hispanic little girl, pestering that he had gotten mixed between some boys, becoming jealous of him by capturing two girls' hearts. A small amount of praise, calling him a womanizer, he hated that latter. As Lincoln couldn't believe himself to be one to play with others' feelings like that, he got over Christina sometime after she had switched classes, so he had no need to even glance in her direction. Like Ronaldo's situation, some boys had noticeably backed off commenting when they noticed Lincoln becoming irate. The boy Loud gave a small huff as he looked back at his homework. Looks like me beating up Chandler's gang is still on everyone's mind, he smirked awkwardly. This was being the only time he was so happy to be feared. Still, if they were able to be dealing with hecklers like the rest of the week, both of them would eventually be driven mad. The last thing Lincoln and Ronaldo needed to do was wound up to start a fight and getting suspended. Ronnie Anne was already becoming infuriated, while Lincoln was a higher level of tolerance. Even that would run out if his patience was tested too much. Sparing another look at his girlfriend, a heavy weight filled Lincoln's chest as he gazed into his depressed brown eyes. Given how close they have gotten, it shouldn't be too surprising that he feels similar to her, though Lincoln was dwelling on something that he couldn't quite describe himself. He felt as if he couldn't just do anything to see Ronnie Anne smiling again, similar to what he'd do for his sisters. If he saw him being depressed, however, this particular feeling ran deeper. If he had to describe it, Lincoln would only say it was like sunlight being blocked out by a shroud of clouds. Only difference is that he could actually do something to make the sun come back. And he had one idea on how to do that. Hey, Ronnie Anne, the Hispanic girl glanced up at him. I was going to wait till the weekend, but do you... A tiny red became visible on his face. Do you want to go to Julian's with me tonight? It be on me. Ronaldo's eyes widened a bit, but at the words replaying in her mind, a small smile appeared on her face. Lincoln Loud, are you asking me on a date? Her tone wasn't mocking in any sense, but it did have a ring of amusement, mild. Lincoln rubbed his arm, a habit he had picked up whenever he got nervous. He bit his lip and he started pushing down any fear that resided within his mind. His gaze hardened as he put on a showcase of bravado, looking like as manly as possible. Yes, I, Lincoln Loud, am asking you on a date. I mean, you did ask me to go to Gus's a while back, and you wanted to go to Jillian's, so... Lincoln was cut off as Ronnie Anne put a finger on his lips. My answer is yes, Ronaldo replied with a warm smile. The tomboy saw through Lincoln's little facade, but she wanted to let him have this moment. She removed her finger from his mouth and with a smile that was replaced with a look of concern, "Boy, will we be able to go there? I mean, it's Monday and my parents aren't really into taking me out on a school night." Lincoln tapped his chin. "We could ask Bobby." "No, he's delivering pizzas." Ronaldo shook her head. "Dang it," Lincoln muttered. If there isn't an idea of asking Ronnie Anne's parents for permission, but he was rather nervous of just coming up and saying that he wanted to take their daughter out on the outing. "I just hope Mr. Santiago isn't one of those overprotective dads." The white-haired child shuddered a little at that thought. No. Here it is." Carol spoke as she sorted through the shelf, grabbing a specific brand of shampoo. "Are you absolutely sure this is going to work?" Connor asked impatiently. The arms he had folded glanced as he looked around nervously. He was wearing a dark black beanie on his head to hide his hair. Normally he would have just ditched it since it was too hot to be wearing one, but the boy didn't want to risk being spotted by Lincoln or that crazy girl from school. "Oh, it will." The Carol read the directions on the back of the bottle. "This is the same shampoo I had to use when I accidentally dyed my hair red." Connor raised an eyebrow. "You dyed your hair red?" "It was a couple years ago. And nice that you stopped whining about your clothes." The older girl gave a smug grin. The Pringy siblings had visited a few stores to get Connor some new threads, which was already he was wearing. He had a blue plaided shirt on as well as a gray checkered pattern, cargo shorts, the clothes that Carol had picked out. Connor tugged at one of the shelves, checking out the rest of his attire. "I guess you could say it grew on me." "Good, 'cause honestly, I hated the way you rolled up your pant legs," Carol replied, as they walked out to the checkout desk. The 11-year-old glaring at the hole at the back of his sister's head. Once they reached the desk, Carol handed the hair care product to the cashier. "So, did you think anything you could do to make it up to the girl that you've been lying to?" The teen spoke, watching her brother from the corner of her eye. Connor shook his head. "Carol, we've been so wrapped up in this trying to make me look less than a copycat for the past 2 hours. I didn't even think I have time to think about Christina." "Don't lie, Connor. I saw your sad gaze you kept giving the floor when I saw you picking stuff out for you." The 11-year-old frowned. "I was sad because I can't think of anything. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Just show up to her house and say I'm sorry? If I do that, then her parents might kill me, and the half of the school may think she's dating Lincoln." "True. But in cases like this," Carol thanked the cashier before they strolled out of the store, "it's best to make the statement and set a record. Your class may think she's dating Lincoln, but that's when you come over and sweep her off her feet. That should pay any of those dumb rumors to rest." Connor furrowed his brows. "This isn't like Romeo and Juliet, Carol. I doubt it'll be easy." "That's because you're not being imaginative, bro. You got over 300 from that boy you dealt with, so use it." Looking up, Carol followed the nearest signs to the restroom. "Now let's make your hair natural again." The 11-year-old's eyes wind up. "Wait, now? Well, I'm definitely not waiting until you get home for you to do something stupid again. So come on." Carol spoke with an authoritative tone before dragging her brother to the nearest family restroom. Connor shriveled up his head around, hoping that no one would take a look of his embarrassing innovator. Not a soul was batting an eye at the two kids. While he was glancing around, the 11-year-old paused when he noticed a look at the flower and sitting between the outlet stores. Connor stood still, staring at the little shop. The gears in his brain told him the idea was being produced. Unfortunately, his train of thought was derailed when Carol yanked him out of the restroom. Once inside, the teen locked the door so they wouldn't be disturbed. Thankfully, the bathroom was recently cleaned, given the smell of Clorox bleach that was still present. Having Connor sit on this closed toilet, Carol turned on the sink and squirted some of the shampoo in her hand. Once it was lathered up nicely, she doused Connor's hair with the water before roughly digging the contents into his follicles. The 11-year-old yelped in pain as a hard tug began to pull up some hair. "Ow! Stop moving so much. It feels like you're ripping out my hair. I have to get it all the way to the scalp, and you have a lot of hair, so I need to sort this through." The Pringy boy winced as he felt more of it being roughly handled, his head being pulled away so stubbornly in random directions. "Could you at least take it easy, please?" he begged. "Just be a man and suck it up. You'll need it later." Carol grinned. as she put more shampoo into the process and do it all over again. Connor gripped the edges of his seat, biting his lower lip in frustration as his scalp felt like it was on fire from the rough treatment. While he couldn't see it, Carol began to notice the white follicles returning to their natural palish yellow. He then started to ease up and gently massaged the shampoo onto his head. Much to Connor's pleasure, the teen ran her nails through the straight lines, stretching out her brother's hair a little before running a finger strands to get some of that hair product between the gaps. After a few more minutes, Connor's hair was a mix of yellow and white foam. Feeling as she was done, Carol got him up and washed his hair down the sink. When finished, the boy's hair looked soaked to the point where Connor's fangs began to cover his face. The teen then grabbed a paper towel, started drying his head. "See? That wasn't so bad, was it?" She spoke with a teasing tone. "I'm never hiring you as my hairdresser." The statement might have sounded harsh, but Connor's tone impelled otherwise. Once Carol was finished, the former silver-haired child was glad to be his usual light blonde hair again. "You were saying, dear brother?" The blonde spoke sweetly, leaning down behind his reflection so her head was level with his. Connor glanced down at the sink. "Thanks." Carol gave a side wink. "Sorry, I didn't quite catch that." The boy looked back up, staring at Carol from the mirror. "I said thanks for helping me. You didn't have to do all this, you know." "I didn't," Carol straightened herself. But I wouldn't be a good sister if I let you do it yourself." She folded her arms. "Now what are you going to do about your other problem?" Connor gave a smile, knowing his thoughts like a train ran back to him. Girls like flowers, right? After a few hours later, Lisa walked in the house with a content smile on her face. She would have arrived much sooner but she was at the local college today. Instead, the prodigy had visited some colleagues of hers at that science institute that was an hour away from the house. Her smile just faltered a bit when she looked around. Being the smartest person in the family was both a blessing and a curse. She often just any time she got home from work or just being out somewhere, one of her siblings or parents would request her for aid for something trivial. Sometimes they even call her if they were impatient or desperate. As she walked through the house, the living room to the dining rooms were vacant, and she couldn't hear any of the noise in the kitchen. "My siblings must be upstairs then," Lisa noted awkwardly. Walking up the steps, her incredible mind ran to a list of simple questions she asked on a daily basis. "Can you help me with my homework? I need help with conversions, sweetie. Do you think this color looks great with this?" To be fair, the last question was something Lola once asked Lisa, which caused the 4-year-old to facepalm, directed her to Lenny. For once, Lisa wished her family actually came to her with real problems, like something a genius would do in immediate help of finding and changing. Sadly, those moments were few from far off between. While she couldn't say it out loud, Lisa did hate it that her family appeared to be too lazy for their simple things. Once she got upstairs, Lisa turned towards her in Lily's room. One of the sisters must have heard her tiny steps, because as soon as she opened her door, Lisa heard another swinging open. "Lisa, I need your help." The brunette rolled her eyes. "Shocker," she sighed mentally. Looking to her right. "What is it, Lynn?" The 13-year-old took a few steps towards Lisa, pulled on her phone and scrolling for something once it was already ready. She showed the little screen to the girl. "Do those pictures look right to you?" Lisa, frustrated with a groan. "Do I really have to answer this for you?" She stopped taking a good look at the photo. "Wait a second." The prodigy narrowed her eyes, taking Lynn's phone from Lynn's grasp. The 4-year-old then fumbled with the few photos on the phone, not believing what they were showing. "These can't be real. It's our sole brother hasn't made any mention of Christina since that video contest he took part in 6 months ago. Not only that, he gotten close to Ronnie Anne, if we were to believe his and Laurie's statements." Lisa returned the attention back to the Jacques. "How did you get these?" "Someone sent them to everyone in our Lincoln's class." Lynn folded her arms. "Practically half the school thinks he's dating Christina now, or that he's been cheating on her with Ronnie Anne, and vice versa. But I can't tell you without a doubt whoever that guy is in those photos definitely isn't Lincoln. I was with him, Ronnie Anne and his friends, when it happened. I mean, just look at the way he's dressed." She gestured back to her phone. Lisa rubbed her chin and scanned the device again. "One, it looks like you or me with your brother went well, and frankly, I'm not surprised you managed to catch those minute details, but it does give a good indication that those pictures were doctorated. Not only that, I saw someone who looked just like him in the halls. I tried to grab him, but Lynn then told him to turn her gaze heated to the floor, eyebrows becoming increasingly V-shaped. I lost him in that stupid library. She directed her attention towards her sister. He then looked, softening a little. Think you can figure out who took those? Lisa hummed, scratching her chin as she noticed a few details that seemed off. I can, but it's going to take some time. You see, this isn't your typical stage photo. From what I'm seeing here, these pictures appear to be altered using the popular Adobe app known as Photoshop. Photoshop? Lynn repeated. She was hesitant and silent for a moment, seeing that this was all starting to add up. She brought her hand to her hip. I guess that explains why it looks a lot like Lincoln's face here, but it has to do with someone in the school. That guy in those photos definitely goes there. Just cropped his face out. Probably wasn't working alone either. I checked the databases for any used app you use within a few days. Seeing those pictures are still fresh. Lisa walked to her room, heading for the computer. All the systems in your school are linked to the main server that tracks everything, so it shouldn't be too hard to find out what I need. And I even hacked into the system once to do a favor for Lola. The Jacques snorted a little. What did you do? Change your grade? Negative, Lisa replied as she booted up her system. She wanted me to change someone else's grade so she could get a leg up on the competitor favor for one of her pageants. A smirk then formed on Lynn's face. But you could change your grades if we asked, right? The 13-year-old spoke in an overly sweet tone. I would, but you wouldn't learn anything. Plus, her parents would metaphorically murder me if another sibling, if word got out. Lynn shrugged. It was worth a shot. She leaned back on Lisa's chair. So how long is this going to take? At best, Lisa said, as she typed in, a few hours, at most, a day or two. Lynn's shoulders sank and her lips curled into a frown as she threw her hands up in frustration. A whole day? Can't this go any faster? The longer the Jacques was running around, the more he's hurting our bro's rep. Lynn, Lisa spun her hand around until she was facing her sister. You can't rush something delicate like this. I'm sorry, but that's the best I can give you. She spun back to the computer. I'll let you know what I find. The Jacques breathed in through her nose. Fine, just give me something to work with. Lynn then turned and exited out of the room, shutting the door behind her. This place is amazing. I wish we could come here every day. Ronnie Anne spoke in delight as she glanced around at all the games. I still can't believe your parents actually agreed to let us come here by ourselves, Lincoln said, a tinge of nervousness hanging in his voice. Indeed, both kids were surprised that Maria and Marcus had fully accepted them to take them to Jillian's. Lincoln was quaking on the spot as he popped the question to them. Even though Ronnie Anne held his hand in means of assurance, it only did so much. Maybe it might have been that the adults saw Lincoln as more of their own, rather than having them over for 14 days. Or it might have been because the two adults were looking for an excuse to have the house to themselves. Ronnie Anne had to resist the urge to puke down over ride over with Lincoln, giving looks of disgust and agreement. The tomboy was leaving dry heaves once they finally got to the restaurant Mega Arcade, Lee having to lean against the wall to ease himself. Fortunately, she didn't need to vomit, but her appetite was ruined for a bit. As far as the attire went, the kids didn't dress any fancy or anything, still wearing their usual clothing. Ronnie Anne was wearing their hoodie, having a purple shirt on. Instead, Lincoln just made a joke about it, although the tomboy was quick to point out the hypocrisy with the boys' orange polos. So who cares, Dad? They say yes, that matters. Ronalda shoved her hands in her pockets. So what do you want to do first? A small laugh escaped him. I'd be asking you, Dad. This is supposed to be our date after all. Lincoln half joked. Such a gentleman, Ronnie Anne said in a Fox English accent. But seriously, first time being here, I absolutely have no idea what we're dealing with. By default, what makes you think an expert lame? She paused, drawing the confusion from Lincoln. Lincoln stayed silent for a moment as his lips curled into a smile as he figured out what he was trying to do. You know you don't have to stop calling me lame-o. I could, but... Ronalda stared off into space. Background noise filled the silence between them before she locked eyes with him again. You aren't exactly lame anymore in my book. Plus, I thought you'd get very annoyed with it over time. Well, Lincoln scratched his head. It would be a lie if I said I wasn't annoyed when you called me that several months ago, where we barely knew each other. The boy gave her a reassuring smile. But you could say it grew on me. Lori calls me twerp sometimes, without any meaningness to it, and Lincoln's smile faltered a little. Lynn occasionally jokes about the name, but she doesn't mean anything by it. You didn't know that, right? Ronaldo shook her head. No, I guess you're right. Maybe I'm just overthinking things. Out of curiosity, is there another nickname you would use? Ronnie Anne purses her lips and looked up at the ceiling. She hummed as she tried to think of a punny nickname, or at least sounded something that sounded hilarious. Thinking about her older brother and Lori, Roberto's official nickname was Boo Boo Bear, in which in all honesty made Ronaldo visibly cringed. She definitely never would call Lincoln that. However, she did know a few things Lincoln's sisters tend to call him Linky. A smirk took from Ronnie Anne's face as her brain mixed with two names together, making something more hilarious and embarrassing. Linky Poo? Lincoln had been gazing around to decide which game they were playing. Then he turned his back to face her. Huh? Your new nickname is going to be Linky Poo. The Hispanic girl lightly tapped her nose at the last two words. The look on Lincoln's face then spoke volumes. His eyes were dinner plate sizes, and his cheeks were heated up. Once he fully registered the name. Why is that one? Because the look on your face. Well, Ronaldo covered her face to stifle her laughs. The boy gave a nervous laugh. Well, at least you're smiling again. True. Ronaldo put an arm around Lincoln's shoulder. Anything yet? I have in mind, babe, the boy replied with a smirk. The tomboy lightly punched his cheek. You can't steal any of Bobby's lines, Linky. The couple sat about playing as many games as they could until they either ran out of credits or experienced to the first pangs of hunger. Lincoln didn't even know much of anything would be, but he was fairly confident enough that he had enough cash saved up. For a long time he kept a secret stash of money hidden in a hollowed-out piece of the floor. Call him paranoid, but in a family like his, where money could be scarce at times, it is best to have a secret hideaway. In the events of someone trying to snoop around for cash, when he disliked the use of the word, Lincoln felt like he was lucky that no one in his family discovered it, especially when they were selling and packing his stuff. After mentally exhausting themselves playing 15 different games, the duo finally sat down at a small round table for dinner. When Ronaldo asked about how they were going to pay for their meal, Lincoln naturally stated that it had covered. He also added that she could get anything she wanted. Ronnie Anne was still a little concerned, because it wasn't like they were in their teens with part-time jobs. Still, Lincoln's enthusiasm convinced her otherwise to ease her worries. So, what are we going to eat? Lincoln asked as he looked through the menu. I think I'll get a Caesar salad. I had one before, so I'm hoping this place makes it good. You? Ronaldo asked, while flipping the back of the menu. Last time I was here, I had a burger. It was lunchtime. However, Lincoln hummed through while he was looking at the food options. I may try this pasta. Ronnie Anne raised an eyebrow, and Lincoln showed her the picture. It was a linguine pasta with shrimp and steak covered with lobster sauce. The boy felt his mouth watering just staring at it. That looks really good. However, that might make you too full for dessert. She then gave a grin before showing Lincoln the page she was looking at. On the dessert menu, there were several good choices for patterns for after-dessert dinner treats. But one stood out the most was called the Brookie Tower. It was nearly a foot tall, hardened with cookies and ice cream, arranged from a shish kebab pattern topped with whipped cream, caramel, and fudge lining. Being part of the chocolate-holic like his sisters, Lincoln instantly knew that he wanted afterwards. Good point. Lincoln darted his way back to the menu. It says there's a half-plate option. I'll get that. 3 minutes later, a waitress came by and took their orders. The two kids chatted idly about the games they played, tossing bragging rights about how due to their beating each other at least 3 times, and even sharing the laughter because more than one game. The matinee ended with a tie between them. 15 minutes passed before their food arrived. Ronaldo was rather surprised. Her salad was much larger than expected. Lincoln was pretty sure he ordered the half plate, yet the dish sitting in front of him was practically full size. Guess both of us will have to make room for dessert, Ronaldo chuckled. If not, I'll probably have to fire one out this after. That'll make room for more, Ronaldo joked. The two shared another laugh before they started eating. Upon the first bite, both kids felt like as if a piece of heaven was sitting on their mouths. They chewed slowly to savor the taste, then outright digging more into the wave of bliss that had worn off. While they ate, Lincoln gave a few glances at his girlfriend. He was happy that she was content, and although there was one thing he always wondered about Ronnie Anne, it was almost hard to believe that under that hard, brash nature sat a sweet, compassionate soul. Granted, there were still bits of Ronaldo's tomboyish nature, but that just made him like her even more. Hey, Ronnie Anne. The Hispanic girl stopped chewing and then raised her eyebrow at her boyfriend. Were you always this nice? I don't mean anything bad about it, it's just... Lincoln paused, topping his fork over the plate. For the longest I've known you, you've been starting as the toughest girl in our grade, and you had the fierce reputation we're actually met in person. I wouldn't think anything about crossing you, at least until you started being affectionate towards me. Both kids giggled a bit. Well, I gotta know, how did you end up being the most feared girl in 5th grade? Ronaldo sat her fork down, giving a blank stare at the half-eaten salad. Truth be told, you're right. I wasn't as always considered as the queen of pain. She stirred through a few pieces of lettuce around. Back when I was in 3rd grade, I just started attending school we go to now. My family had moved here recently, and I had to keep to myself mostly. For the first half hour of the year, I was probably mostly shy and upset about the move since I had left several friends of mine behind. I couldn't even keep in contact with them since I didn't have a phone or a computer. They probably moved away or by some places by then. So where was your old home? Lincoln asked before taking another bite of his pasta. Ronaldo shrugged. Some town in lower Michigan. I just forgot the name of it anyway. Since I have been keeping quiet, no one's really noticed me or wanted to talk to me. That they suited me is just fine. But a few people decided to try to get to know me since I was alone. Her lips then curled downwards into a frown. And to be honest, I actually did feel lonely. I had been away since I started school. I'm still friends with them today because they were even nicest people and I met at the time. But like I said before, I was shy. I was overall a nice person, but for the better or for less. My 3rd grade year was still pretty boring then. The tomboy furrowed her brows. 4th grade was just as bad. Lincoln raised an eyebrow. What happened? For one reason or another, I found myself dealing with these two bullies. And before you say anything, yes, I used to get bullied. Lincoln didn't say anything, though this opened his eyes with interest. Ronaldo took another bite of her salad before she continued. There was these two girls that they owed this school, or whatever practically, because one of them was the daughter of someone of the school board committee, and there was another very popular. They weren't these big, fat girls either. They were just preppy about my height and had your skin tone. Subconsciously, the tomboy then gripping her utensil tighter. I didn't do anything to them, but they targeted me especially. Judging by the way increasing amount of venom in her tone, Lincoln was certain that Ronnie Anne was either going to fly into a rant or throw something. Maybe it was because I was pretty reserved and didn't have much outgoing, or maybe because I wasn't some sort of stupid social circle, but those two picked on me for everything. They made fun of my looks, my teeth, and the fact I have my friends, my hair. Your hair? Ronaldo's cheeks heated up in faint red as she averted eye contact. I used to have pigtails back then. Pigtails? Yeah. I'd rather not talk about that. The tomboy took a sip of her soda. I told my parents and teachers about it, and they all said it was just to ignore them, Ronnie Anne said as she leaned on the table, giving a groan of frustration. A lot of good that did, but soon the teasing became physical. I was tripped in the hall, I had my hair pulled, had several pranks pulled on me that were even laughing at the stock of our grade, and in some days, Ronnie Anne paused again. Her lips thinned until they were purely white, grinding against each other. They beat me up after school. Her voice was broken with a mix of anger and sadness.